The scorching sun had turned the once bustling fish pond into a cracked wasteland. In the small village of Marinpur, the annual drought had struck harder than ever before. The people had grown used to water shortages, but this year was different. This year, even the ancient pond that had served the village for generations had dried up entirely. Asher, a young man in his late 20s, stood at the edge of the pond, hands on his hips, gazing at the parched earth. The land had been passed down to him by his grandfather, who often told stories of strange dreams and forgotten history tied to the pond. Asher never paid those stories much mind. Now, with debts mounting and his younger sister Zoya in need of urgent medical treatment, Asher was considering converting the pond into a small patch of farmland. He stepped down into the empty basin, his boots kicking up little clouds of dust. The mud had hardened into a rough, uneven floor. As he walked across it, lost in thought, his foot struck something solid beneath the dirt. He stumbled, nearly falling, then knelt to investigate. His fingers scraped away the dry crust until they touched cold metal, a handle buried just beneath the surface. Curious and somewhat unnerved, Asher dug deeper. Soon, a rectangular shape began to form under the earth. Realizing the object was too large to remove alone, he rushed to fetch his childhood friend and neighbor Rafi, a cheerful but cautious man. The two returned with shovels and flashlights, fueled by excitement and growing suspense. As they worked, sweat poured down their faces, but neither of them stopped. After hours of digging, they unearthed what appeared to be an ancient wooden chest, reinforced with rusted metal strips and covered in strange, faded carvings. The symbols looked older than either of them could guess. The lock was heavily rusted, and the wood had begun to rot, but the chest was still intact. They sat on the edge of the pond, staring at it, breathless. Rafi broke the silence. Maybe we shouldn't open it. This kind of thing it could be. Cursed, or worse, illegal. We could get into real trouble. But Asher's mind was racing. His family had nothing left. His sister's hospital bills were piling up, and the bank had already started threatening foreclosure. He had to take the risk. Grabbing a crowbar, Asher pried the rusted lock until it gave way with a snap. Slowly, nervously, he lifted the lid. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Inside, glittering in the dim beam of their flashlight, were gold coins, gemstones, and antique trinkets, jewels encased in velvet pouches, small figurines made of ivory, and plates carved from silver. It didn't look like something from a pirate story. It looked real, ancient, valuable. Rafi sat back, stunned. Asher, this is worth a fortune. Asher didn't answer. His heart pounded in his chest. He reached out and touched one of the coins. It was heavy and warm from the heat. This was no ordinary discovery. This wasn't just luck. This was something more. Something that could change everything. And deep down, a strange feeling crept over him, one of awe, but also foreboding. Something had been buried here for a reason, and now it had been disturbed. The weight of the discovery settled heavily on Asher and Rafi in the days following the unearthing of the treasure. They had moved the chest under cover of night, hiding it beneath a loose floorboard in the storage shed behind Asher's house. But even hidden, the treasure seemed to radiate pressure like something ancient that had been waiting far too long to be found. Among the gold coins and jewels, they had found a rolled-up parchment wrapped in oilskin. Carefully unsealing it, they discovered it was written in a mixture of Persian and Old Urdu. With the help of a retired schoolteacher named Uncle Farouk, they had it translated. The scroll revealed that the treasure once belonged to a Mughal noble, a wealthy lord who had ruled the region centuries ago during the empire's decline, fearing rebellion and British looters. The noble had hidden the treasure beneath a sacred pond on his estate today, the very land Asher stood upon. But there was more. The final lines of the scroll told of a curse, a warning that anyone who took the treasure with greed in their heart would bring ruin upon themselves and those they loved. Farouk brushed it off as folklore, but Asher couldn't shake the chill the words left behind. Rafi, on the other hand, saw only the possibilities. We can change our lives with this, Asher. Pay off debts, treat your sister, rebuild the farm, you could live like a king. Still, Asher hesitated. They couldn't exactly walk into a bank with a chest full of ancient gold, and they couldn't go to the police without risking confiscation or arrest. Quietly, Asher began to portion out a few of the smaller, less unique coins and sold them discreetly through a contact Farouk trusted. The money came in slowly, but steadily, enough to pay Zoya's medical bills and get his family back on stable ground. But then, things started to change. One day, Asher noticed a pair of men in dark clothes watching the pond from a nearby field. Rafi admitted that he might have mentioned the treasure just a little to a relative in another village. That relative turned out to be a gossip, and now the whispers had spread like wildfire. Soon Kaleem, a corrupt and powerful local politician, took interest. Kaleem was notorious for land grabs and shady business dealings. One evening, his men arrived at Asher's home, posing as officials conducting a land survey. Asher saw right through the act. He sent them away, but it was clear they were watching him. The pressure mounted. Rafi was offered a bribe to reveal the treasure's location but refused. Kaleem's men began to follow Zoya on her way to school. Then, a message came, a direct threat. Give us what's buried beneath your land, or lose everything you love. Asher and Rafi knew they had to act. That night, under a starlit sky, Asher made a decision. They would move the treasure again, hide it in a safer place, and come up with a plan to protect Zoya and themselves. But just as they began loading the chest into the back of Rafi's truck, they heard the sound of tires on gravel. Headlights flooded the yard. Men stepped out, armed and angry. The treasure had brought hope, but now it had also brought danger. The headlights cut through the darkness like blades. Asher and Rafi froze beside the truck, their hands still gripping the edges of the treasure chest. Stepping out of the car was Kaleem, flanked by 4 armed men in plain clothes. His face, smug and cold, revealed that he wasn't here to negotiate, he was here to take what he believed was his. Enough games, Kaleem said, eyeing the chest. You had your moment of fantasy. Now hand it over before someone gets hurt. Asher, heart pounded. He glanced at Rafi, then at the shadows by the house. Zoya wasn't home. She had gone to stay with a family friend earlier that evening. Thank God. He nodded slowly and raised his hands, trying to stall. You don't have to do this, Asher said, voice steady but tense. We can talk, but Kaleem wasn't interested in talk. He gestured to his men to seize the chest. That's when the trap sprung. Unbeknownst to Kaleem, Rafi had tipped off retired Colonel Anwar, a respected figure in the village, who once served in army intelligence. Anwar, along with 2 local policemen who still believed in justice, had been watching from the shadows. The moment Kaleem's men moved for the chest, spotlights flicked on and authoritative voices barked orders. Drop your weapons. You're surrounded. A scuffle broke out. In the chaos, Kaleem tried to flee, but Asher tackled him to the ground. The police swiftly handcuffed the corrupt politician and his thugs. After months of fear and tension, it was over in minutes. At the station, Asher and Rafi gave a full statement. They handed over the treasure, including the scroll, and all records related to the discovery. The officers, stunned by the historical value of the find, contacted federal heritage authorities. For a time, the village buzzed with press, historians, and legal officials. Normally, such treasure would be confiscated entirely by the government. But due to the exceptional honesty shown by Asher along with the attempted theft and threats involved, the courts made a rare decision. Asher would receive a legal finder's reward, a portion of the treasure's value, and public recognition. For preserving a national heritage, the reward changed everything. Asher paid off his family's debts and built a modern farmhouse with solar power and clean water systems. He ensured Zoya received the best medical treatment and eventually enrolled her in a prestigious school. Rafi, ever loyal, became Asher's partner in building a fish farm in Eco Park where the old pond once lay, reviving it as a tourist and education site for the community. But perhaps most inspiring was what Asher did next. He used part of his reward to create a village fund for education, healthcare, and clean drinking water. Roads were paved, a new school was built, and even the poorest families found support. Asher never forgot the moment he touched that first gold coin in the dry pond. He often walked by the Noah's stored water, watching children laugh and play near the edge. The treasure had once threatened to destroy his life, but because he chose integrity over greed, it had become a blessing instead. And the so-called curse? It never came. Because the true power wasn't buried under the pond, it had always been in the choices he made.